challenging foods to grill. And it's challenging because A, it either sticks to the grill grate, or B, it falls apart when you try and turn it. And listen, I have as much trouble with it as everybody else. I decided to dedicate this show to grilling fish, and in particular to 3 methods that solve those 2 problems: fish sticking to the grill grate and fish falling apart when you turn it. Portobello mushroom burgers. It's a burger so big in flavor, you won't even miss the beef. Grilled pepper salad. This is a great recipe for people who have a tendency to burn their food. Vegetable paella. It's enough to make a carnivore green with envy. And smoke roasted apples. No meat, all flavor. The Vegetarian Grill. I'm Stephen Reichland, and from the beautiful Tubac Golf Resort in southern Arizona, it's time to grill. A vegetarian at a barbecue is like a thirsty man in the desert. But in some countries, like Japan and India, some of the most exciting food to come off the grill is meatless. Whether you're a full-time vegetarian or you just want to cut back on the meat sometimes, this show has you covered. Grilling in the embers. This is one of my favorite ways to cook, and it's certainly one of the most primal. In fact, the first barbecue 500,000 or 600,000 years ago probably looked very much like this. The food was laid right on top of the embers. I first saw this procedure in Mexico, where it was used to make salsa. Here, I used the technique to create a ember roasted pepper salad. Did you ever wonder what the first barbecue looked like? Probably something like this. It's the best way I know to make a roasted pepper salad, and you don't even need a grill grate. Start with sweet red, yellow, and green bell peppers and lay them directly on the embers. This is a great recipe for people who have a tendency to burn their food. And roast the peppers until charred on all sides, about 3 to 4 minutes per side. Transfer them to a plate and let cool to room temperature. Then scrape the burnt skin off the pepper. See how easily it comes off? Charring the peppers in the embers this way looks cool, but it also caramelizes the natural plant sugars, making the peppers incredibly sweet and smoky. Once the skin is off, simply cut the pepper open, cut out the stem end, scrape out the seeds, and cut the peppers into strips. Then arrange the strips on the platter. It's as colorful as a Van Gogh. Now the dressing. Start with 1 clove minced garlic. Add salt, freshly ground black pepper, and sherry vinegar, or wine vinegar, and whisk until the salt crystals are dissolved. Then whisk in a few tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Spoon the vinaigrette over the pepper salads. Finally, sprinkle each salad with currants for sweetness. Capers for tanginess. Pine nuts for crunch. Feta cheese for a burst of saltiness. And finely chopped flat leaf parsley. Never did burning your food look or taste so great. Let's see how we did. Mmm. When I was writing my first barbecue book, both my wife and my daughter went vegetarian on me. So you'll notice in all of my books I have a disproportionately large chapter on meatless grilled dishes. At the time, it was a matter of self-defense. But you know, it's a good thing because there are a lot of vegetarians and they deserve more than just hamburger buns and potato salad at a barbecue. The portobello is one of the meatiest of all mushrooms, which makes it a perfect candidate for a meatless burger. The portobello is a jumbo cousin of the button mushroom. Wipe it clean with a damp paper towel. You never want to soak porous mushrooms in water. Range the mushrooms in a baking dish. Next thing I want to show you is the onion. Cut crosswise into half-inch slices. And here's a cool technique. If you skewer the onion crosswise, it won't fall apart on the grill. You're probably familiar with these, but in case you're not, poblano chili, think of it as a turbocharged green bell pepper. Let me show you the marinade. It starts with chipotle chilies, which are smoked jalapeno peppers. Next, add garlic. Chopped fresh onion. Balsamic vinegar. Extra virgin olive oil. And a little salt and pepper. Puree the ingredients to a smooth paste. Pour the marinade over the portobello mushrooms. You can see I have the mushrooms gill side up. That's the side that will absorb most of the flavor. And using a spoon, just spread it into the gills. There is very little food or food culture left that is truly local. And one of those foods is barbecue. Barbecue is some of the last truly indigenous, truly local food there is. And it's been important for me to travel around the world documenting authentic barbecue in places as far-flung as Indonesia, as Mexico, as Argentina. And to teach Americans not only how to prepare them here, but to appreciate them. I've set up the grill for direct grilling, and I'm using a 3-zone fire. That means the first 3 burners are set on high for searing, 2 burners on medium for the more delicate foods like grilling the hamburger buns, and 1 zone completely off. That's my safety zones. And we'll continue by brushing the grill grate with a stiff wire brush and oiling the grate with either a cloth grill oiler or a folded paper towel, dipped in oil and drawn across the bars of the grate. Okay, we're ready to grill. So just before you start grilling, brush the onion slices with melted butter. And season with salt and pepper. And while you're at it, brush the buns. I'm using ciabatta bread. The poblano chilies take the longest to cook, so they go on first. You can also put on the onions. The buns go on at the last minute. Now put on the mushrooms. And I like to start grilling the mushrooms gill side down. You'll see why in a second. And finally, toast the buns on the grill. And remember, the buns will grill in a matter almost of seconds. It's time to turn the onions. And turn the poblano chiles, and don't worry about burning the outside. You actually want to char and blister the skin. That will give the poblanos a terrific flavor. Turn the portobello mushrooms. And at this point, if you have any extra marinade, you can spread a little on top. Okay, and the buns are toasted beautifully. You know, a lot of people forget to grill the buns, but for me, this is what makes a great burger. Then the portobellos, and you can actually see the juices sizzling. Then the poblano chilies. And finally, the onions. You see how the skewers kept the onion rings from falling apart. So here's how it goes together. Bun, chipotle marinated portobello, a slice of pepper jack cheese, then our fire roasted poblano chili, then a grilled onion, remember to pull out the skewer, then some sliced fresh avocado, and finally the top bun. It's a burger so big in flavor, you won't even miss the beef. To most Americans, a paella means rice with seafood, and chicken, and sausage. But in fact, in Spain, there are dozens, perhaps hundreds of different varieties of paella. So the notion of a meatless paella would not seem so strange. Paella belongs to a family of great rice dishes that includes jambalaya and risotto. But as far as I know, paella is the only rice dish that's traditionally cooked over a campfire. Here's a great showstopper for a meatless meal: paella grilled over wood. I've fired up 2 kettle grills, but instead of charcoal, I've used oak logs. The first will be used for grilling my vegetables, the second for cooking the paella. Paella is simple to make. It only takes about a half an hour from start to finish, but you need to know about a few special ingredients. The first is saffron, the world's costliest spice, which comes from an aromatic crocus. The second is piquillo peppers. The third is pimentón, smoked paprika. And the fourth, of course, is the rice. The traditional Spanish rice is called bomba. You can also use Italian arborio. The traditional pan is a paella pan, which you can find at any Spanish market. Alternatively, you could use a cast iron skillet. Place the paella pan with a little olive oil on the grill and preheat the oil. People think of me as a cooking teacher. I've been called the barbecue guru or the gladiator of the grill. In fact, I see myself as a cultural anthropologist, and I see my job is taking my readers and my viewers around the world, discovering these incredible local traditional barbecue dishes all over Planet Barbecue. That is my mission. The next step is to make the sofrito, an aromatic mixture of onions, peppers, tomatoes, and garlic. So start by adding the onions, peppers, okay, stir these ingredients together. Next, add the garlic and tomatoes. You add the garlic after a few minutes because it burns more quickly than the onions and peppers. Once the garlic has lost its rawness, add the tomatoes, saffron, and you see I soak the saffron in water to release its flavor, and smoked paprika. You might ask, well, what's the purpose of cooking something in a pan over a wood fire? Well, in fact, you can see the smoke curling up right up over the edge of the paella pan. That's going to add plenty of flavor to the paella. Once the sofrito is fragrant and beginning to brown, add the bamba rice. Cook the rice until the grains are shiny. Then add dry white wine and vegetable stock. Give the rice a stir and let it cook. Meanwhile, I'll show you how to grill the vegetables. The vegetables for the paella are limited only to your imagination. The short list might include zucchini, yellow squash, eggplant, onion, mini bell peppers, tomatoes, and garlic. Note for the onion slices, I've pinned them with toothpicks. That will keep them from falling apart on the grill. Note on the garlic, I have skewered the garlic cloves as well. That keeps the individual cloves from falling through the bars of the grate. I've set up the grill in a configuration called a 3-zone fire. A lot of wood on one side, that's my hot zone. A few embers in the middle, that's my medium zone, and a cool or safety zone where I can move the vegetables if they start to burn. So let's see, the onions take the longest. We'll put those on first. Followed by the squash, zucchini, eggplant, mini bell peppers, garlic cloves, baby tomatoes, and baby onions. The precise recipe is much less important than what looks good and fresh. And for a little extra flavor while the vegetables are grilling, you can baste them with extra virgin olive oil and your favorite Mediterranean herb rub. Cooking time for the vegetables, about 3 to 6 minutes per side, just until each is golden brown. We live in this incredible melting pot culture, and we have a gift. We have a wonderful curiosity about the way people cook and eat in other countries, and we have this gift of bringing it and making it part of our own. So here are the grilled vegetables. Don't forget to remove all the skewers. You know, there is nothing like the high, dry heat of a grill to caramelize the plant sugars and bring out a vegetable's sweetness. Okay, let's finish the paella. So you can see the vegetable stock has been absorbed and the rice is tender. The next step is simply to add the chickpeas, piquillo peppers, all of our grilled vegetables. Stir in the vegetables. And don't forget the parsley. Is there anything more beautiful than grilled vegetables? Paella on a wood-burning grill. It's enough to make a carnivore green with envy. Smoke roasted, quote-unquote, baked apples may seem newfangled, but in fact, they're as old as New England itself. Back in colonial times, most homes did not have ovens, so the baking was done in what was called a Dutch oven, a large, heavy cast iron pot with a metal lid with a depression in the center. And the pot would be set on the embers in the fireplace, and additional coals or embers would be shoveled in top. That's really where the idea for this dish came. A baked apple may be delicious, but there's a way to make it better. You guessed it. Cook it in a smoker. The first step is to make a grilling ring. Take a piece of aluminum foil, crumple it into a sort of donut, or you can use a commercial grilling ring. Hollow out the apple using a melon bowler. You want to remove the seeds and core, but not cut through the bottom so the apple will hold the filling. Add a spoonful of apricot jam, then a spoonful of cream cheese, then brown sugar, and finally a pat of butter. What's going to happen as the apple smokes, the butter will melt into the sugar will melt into the cream cheese will melt into the apricot jam, and the whole shebang will melt into the apple. This is a water smoker. You can see I have a chimney's worth of lit charcoal in the bottom. Next, place the water pan in the center. And because I'm smoking apples today, instead of water, I'm going to place apple cider in the water pan. Next, you can put the lower rack over the water pan. And let's say if you were cooking 16 or 20 apples, you'd use both racks. And arrange the apples on the upper grate. Finally, place the dome lid on top of the smoker and adjust the vent holes so that they're wide open. To generate the wood smoke, take a couple of wood chunks. I'm using apple here to stay in the theme, and add the wood chunks to the charcoal. Cooking time is 1 to 1.5 hours. Let's check the apples. Check for doneness, use the Charmin test. Squeeze the apples on the side. They should feel squeezably soft. These look absolutely luscious. Fire-roasted pepper salad, vegetable paella, wood-grilled portobello mushroom burgers, and smoke-roasted apple. It's a vegetarian barbecue even a die-hard carnivore will love. See you next time. Why has grilling become so popular? The tools have become much more sophisticated. Americans travel more than ever before, and we experience these incredible grilled dishes. We want to come home and prepare these dishes at home. People want to entertain at home, bring people to their backyards, and that's given rise to the outdoor kitchen, these amazing setups for grilling, certainly not like the grilling setup when I was growing up. Balinese roast pork with grilled beans and golden rice. Pit roasted pork in the style of the Yucatan. This one explodes with flavor. And a South Carolina pulled pork with mustard sauce. This is what barbecue is all about. It's a pitmaster's dream come true. Pork shoulder roasted to smoky perfection. I'm Stephen Reichlin, and from the beautiful Tubac Golf Resort near Tucson, Arizona, it's time to fire up the smoker. For a lot of pitmasters, this is the ultimate cut. In the American South, barbecue means just one thing: pork shoulder smoke roasted to fork tender perfection. But pitmasters all over the world love this crusty, well-marbled cut of meat. And today I'm going to show you how they cook pork shoulder in the Carolinas, in the Yucatan, and even Balinese style. No ifs, ands, or pork butts about it. In North Carolina, the meat is shredded and mixed with a thin vinegar sauce. In South Carolina, the meat is either shredded or thinly sliced and mixed with a mustard sauce. First, the Carolina version, and as you might imagine, it all begins with a rub. Start with powdered mustard, salt, pepper, that's black pepper, white pepper, sweet paprika, garlic powder, onion powder, and cayenne pepper. And don't worry about writing all this down, folks. The recipe is on our website. Mix the ingredients for the rub with your fingertips. That way you can break up any lumps in the powdered mustard. Now, sprinkle the pork shoulder with the mustard rub and rub it into the meat. Now, several options for smokers. This is a classic upright water smoker, affectionately nicknamed the Bullet. There's charcoal and wood chunks at the bottom, a drip pan in the center, and we'll simply place the pork shoulder on the top grate and close the lid. Now, there's a little trap door on one side of the smoker, and through it, we'll just add a couple of soaked hickory chunks. Then close this little trap door. Okay, the next step is to make the mop sauce. Starts with distilled white vinegar, Dijon style or ballpark style mustard, salt, black pepper, and water. The mop sauce is applied to the pork during cooking to keep it moist and add an extra layer of flavor. It's called a mop sauce because it's applied with one of these. If you visit a busy barbecue joint in the Carolinas, they actually use a clean floor mop to swab a couple dozen pork shoulders. I've got a couple of pork shoulders smoking right now, and this one is about halfway through the process. It's been in the smoker for 3 hours. Mop the pork shoulder about every hour. Now, this is a smoker that says you mean business. It's called an offset horizontal barrel smoker. This is the firebox, and you fill it with charcoal for heat and big hickory log for the wood smoke. And the beauty of this device is it will enable you to smoke the pork shoulders low and slow, about 250 degrees for 6 hours. The way you tell what a cooked pork shoulder looks like will be tender enough to pull apart with your fingers. You can always use an instant read meat thermometer, and you want to cook the pork to about 190 degrees. So, bingo, we're in business. Let me pull these pork shoulders over. Oh man, this is barbecue paradise. Here is our finished pork shoulder. Traditional way of serving the pork is actually pulled into shreds with your fingers. Do you see this? This is called the smoke ring. It's a chemical reaction that takes place when you expose meat to smoke in a low temperature cooking environment. And this is the red badge of honor among pitmasters. It shows that you've nailed the pork. Now, simply tear the pork into shreds, and look how tender and juicy this is. If I squeeze it, it almost squirts. So let me show you how to put it together. You take a hamburger bun and you fill it with our pulled pork. And then a spoonful of Carolina mustard sauce. The recipe's on our website. And a couple of sliced dill pickles. Now that's a sandwich you can shoulder up to. You have the smoky pork, the sour pickle, the tangy mustard sauce. This is what barbecue is all about. When I visited Bali for the first time, I wanted to see a traditional babi guling, a Balinese spit-roasted pork. And a pit master took me up on it. He had me wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. We went to a farm. We selected the pig. And then as a great honor for this American journalist, he put the knife in my hand and let me do the deed. In a country obsessed by barbecue, babi guling is a national treasure. This spit-roasted pork from the island of Bali is enough to make any Indonesian's mouth water. The secret is a bumbu, a fiery paste made with ginger and fresh lemongrass. It's all about pork shoulder today, so let's fire up the rotisserie. Indonesia was once known as the Spice Islands, and its marinades are explosively flavorful. This one begins with shallots, chili peppers, chopped fresh ginger, finely chopped lemongrass, and this was what a whole lemongrass stalk looks like. If you squeeze it, it's got this incredible perfumed lemon flavor, but none of the acidity of a lemon. Next, garlic, ground coriander, black pepper, a little brown sugar for sweetness, coarse salt, and turmeric. And puree the dry ingredients. When I saw this being made on the island of Bali, they used a giant mortar and a pestle that looked like a baseball bat. Once the dry ingredients are pureed, then add a couple of tablespoons of vegetable oil and some fresh lime juice. One of the things that makes this spice paste unique is that you fry it before applying it to the meat. So what does frying do? Well, it releases the aromatic oils in the spices and lemongrass. This is unbelievably fragrant. So once the spice paste is fried, transfer it to a bowl and let it cool. This is a boneless pork shoulder, weighs about 4 pounds, and the next thing you do is butterfly it. Using a chef's knife, come in through the side and cut it in half almost to the other edge. Then open it up like a book, and in each half make a cut this way. The idea is to maximize the amount of surface area of the meat exposed to the spice paste. Okay, so once the meat is butterflied, take half the spice paste and spread it inside the pork roast. Then fold the pork roast together. And here's how you tie it up. Take 4 pieces of butcher string. What you'll do here is come around once, then loop twice. That's a surgeon's knot. And that locks the string in place, so you can tie it off. Spread the remaining bumbu on the outside of the roast. Now, you can cook the roast right away, but of course it will be more flavorful if you let it marinate in the refrigerator for 4 to 6 hours or even overnight. Okay, let's take a look at the grill. Smoke is not part of the Indonesian barbecue tradition, so this is a great recipe to prepare on a gas grill. I've preheated the rotisserie burner, and it's an infrared burner. That means it uses gas-heated ceramic honeycomb as the heat source. And if you want to speed the process up, you can light the outside burners, so you cook both by the radiant heat of the rotisserie burner and by indirect grilling. Okay, for the turn spit now, always remember to put the first set of prongs in place. And then we'll skewer the pork roast, and you want to snug it down on these prongs. Then grab the second set of prongs and use them to tightly secure the roast. Tighten that up. Okay. Finally, insert the end of the spit in the rotisserie motor and the other end in the junction. And remember to place a couple of aluminum foil drip pans under the roast before you turn on the motor. Okay, cooking time will be about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. So, a couple ways to check for doneness on the roast. I mean, first of all, you can see it's golden brown, firm to the touch, but the safe way is always to use an instant read meat thermometer, insert it to the center of the roast, but not touching that hot metal turn spit. You're looking for about 170 degrees. So, take off your babi gulik, unscrew the tines, and slide the roast off the spit. Now remember, you never want to serve a roast hot off the grill. You want to let it rest for about 10 minutes. The meat will relax. It will be much more juicy. And last of all, don't forget to remove the butcher string you used to tie up the roast. Let's slice the roast and see how we did. Look how succulent this roast is. You squeeze it and it actually oozes. The lemongrass, the ginger, it's incredibly fragrant. Roast pork with lemongrass and ginger, Indonesian yellow rice, cucumber salad, and sesame grilled beans. From the ranches of Arizona to the rice paddies of Indonesia, it's Balinese pork shoulder cooked to a turn. So I experienced my first cochinita pibil on the day of the Virgin of Guadalupe, a national religious holiday in Mexico that is celebrated with firecrackers and gunfire all around. And I had arranged to meet a master of cochinita pibil in a tiny village outside of Campeche on the western coast of the Yucatan Peninsula. The Mexican version of pulled pork is cochinita pibil. Born in the Yucatan, it's roasted in a special pit called a pib. If you're looking for a great new way to cook pork shoulder, this one explodes with flavor. Now, there are two things that make cochinita pibil unique. The first is the marinade, and it starts with an ingredient that may be new for you. It's called achiote paste, and it's made with a Caribbean seed called achiote or annatto seed. It has a kind of a fragrant, earthy flavor. Now next, some garlic cloves, which I roasted at a previous grill session. And look, if you skewer them on a toothpick or small bamboo skewer, you won't lose them through the bars of the grate. Then some onion that has been roasted the same way. Just cut each piece in half so it will puree more evenly. Then freshly ground cumin and oregano, and salt and pepper to taste. And whenever you make a marinade in a food processor, always puree the dry ingredients first. Then gradually add your liquids, freshly squeezed lime juice, freshly squeezed orange juice, and a little red wine vinegar. With the tip of a knife, poke a series of holes about 1/2 inch deep on all sides of the pork shoulder. You do this so when you add the marinade, it will penetrate into the meat. Spread half the achiote paste on the bottom and place the pork shoulder on top. Then spread the remaining achiote marinade on top of the pork. And you can just force a little marinade into each of those holes. The cochinita pibil will taste great if you marinate it for 4 hours, and even better if you marinate it overnight. Today we're cooking the cochinita pibil in a charcoal grill. And just to refresh your memory, we're using lump charcoal, light it in a chimney starter, and at the bottom you can put either a crumpled newspaper or these paraffin fire starters. It takes about 20 minutes for the coals to light. Again, the beauty of the chimney starter is that it lights uniformly. We'll set up the grill for classic indirect grilling. What the heck's that mean? Well, dump the coals out into 2 mounds at opposite sides of the grill. One here. And this handle helps you guide your charcoal. Place 2 aluminum foil drip pans in the center of the grill to catch the drippings from the pork. Put the grill grate in place. And now the really cool part. Remember I told you there were 2 things that made cochinita pibil so distinctive. The first is the marinade, and the second is the fact that it's cooked in banana leaves. The banana leaves really do impart a unique flavor of their own. Fat side of the pork shoulder ultimately wants to be up, so we'll turn it upside down now. Because I'm going to turn this over, and then if we have any extra marinade, we can just smear it on top. Pull 1 banana leaf over, and the second folded this way, then a banana leaf on top here, and a banana leaf on top here. And you can just sort of pin this shut with a couple of long toothpicks or bamboo skewers. Okay, so in indirect grilling, the coals, the heat source on the outside, the pork roast goes in the center. I'm not going to bother to put wood chips or chunks on the coals. This recipe is really about the flavor of the achiote marinade and the banana leaves. So finally, to finish up, the lid goes on top. And we open the vent holes for maximum air circulation. You want to cook the pork at about 350 degrees. Cooking time, 2.5 hours, and we'll take the pork up to 190 degrees. Meanwhile, let me show you the traditional salsa that you serve with cochinita pibil. The salsa is called schnipek, literally dog snout salsa, perhaps because of its fiery bite. The active ingredient is the habanero chili, which is 50 times hotter than a jalapeno. To 1 finely chopped fresh tomato, add as much habanero chili as you can bear, then chopped fresh cilantro, diced sweet white onion, and lime juice and fresh orange juice. You'll see me use this combination a lot. The reason is that traditionally this salsa would be made with something called naranja agria, a sour orange, and its flavor is very similar to a mixture of orange juice and lime juice. You may not be able to find sour orange in your area, but you can always find oranges and limes. Oh, and that is a hottie. Check out our PBO pork shoulder. Now, it looks done, meat is soft, but just to make sure, use an instant read meat thermometer. You're looking for 190 degrees, and we're right on the mark. That is one monster pork shoulder. And as with any roast, you want to let the pork rest for about 10 minutes before you cut into it. The meat will relax and it will be much juicier. Final preparation, corn tortillas. I'm going to lightly toast them over the fire. How's that look? And I like to serve it right in the banana leaves. Let me show you how to eat this baby. Just cut off a chunk here. And cut into thin slivers. Okay, and here's how it goes together. Tortilla, a little cochinita pibil, some schneepeck salsa, and Yucatan pickled onions. The recipe's on our website. Man, this is outrageous. So, smoky Carolina style pulled pork, sizzling Balinese babiguli on a spit, fiery cochinita pibil from the Yucatan. It's pork shoulder from around the world. See you next time. I'm in a hangar. It's pitch black, gunfire going off all around me. And in front of me, it looks like an impromptu cemetery. There are mounds of dirt. My host grabs a shovel and scrapes away the dirt in one of these graves. And in it is a metal box. And inside the metal box is a pig that's been marinated in a mixture of achiote seed, a mixture actually that's called recado rojo. Five-spice Shanghai beef short ribs served with hoisin barbecue sauce. Smoky baby back ribs with lemon brown sugar barbecue sauce. You'll nail this recipe the first time you try it. And ribs you can cook on the grill in 10 minutes with Chilean pevity. Ribs so quick you'll miss them if you blink. The ultimate test for the aspiring grill master is mastering the ribs, and today I'll show you 3 of the best. I'm Stephen Reichlin, and from the beautiful Tubac Golf Resort in southern Arizona, it's time to fire up the grill. Travel the world's barbecue trail and you'll find ribs on every continent. For many people, ribs are the ultimate barbecue. Today, I'm going to show you ribs from China, South America, and the American barbecue belt, because every aspiring grill master should know how to nail the rib. I created the first-timer's rib for the person who has never before cooked ribs and wants an absolutely fail-proof recipe. And it's got everything that a rib should have. That is, it's got a rub, it's got a mop sauce, which helps keep the ribs moist during cooking, and it's got a barbecue sauce. all made from scratch. The rib of choice is the baby back rib, and it's cut from right next to the backbone, high on the hog as it were. And I start with baby back ribs because they're more tender and better marbled than spare ribs. And the first step on the baby back rib is actually to remove the membrane on the inside of the rib. And this membrane, the technical name is the pleura. What you want to do is use a sharp instrument and loosen the membrane, and then grab it with a paper towel. It's a little bit slippery, and pull the membrane off the ribs. It impedes the absorption of the spice and smoke flavors. So just remove this membrane, and you'll wind up with something that looks like this. Now, the next step in making a great rib is to prepare the rub. And we make all our rubs from scratch. This is what I call a 4-4 rub, or Reichland's rub. It starts with equal parts salt, black pepper, paprika, and brown sugar. And that's really the only barbecue rub you need to know how to make. Now, to add a little more flavor, a little more complexity, onion powder, powdered mustard, and celery seed. And I recommend mixing the rub with your fingers. I think ribs are the single most iconic food in the pantheon of barbecue. I mean, for many people, ribs mean barbecue. The two of the most famous barbecue cities in America, Memphis and Kansas City, that's what their barbecue is all about. There are two ways to use a rub. Now, you can apply the rub as a seasoning, in which case it acts almost like a seasoned salt. Cook the ribs right away. But what I prefer to do is apply the rub and let the ribs marinate with these spices for 2 to 4 hours. And you can see when you do this, the rub actually cures the meat. And of course, when you marinate the ribs, do so in the refrigerator. So while the ribs are marinating, let me show you how to light the fire and set up the grill. You'll notice I'm using a charcoal grill for these ribs. Now, I'm a big propane enthusiast. I own lots of gas grills, but the truth is, if you want to imbue ribs with that authentic smoke flavor, you must cook on charcoal. Charcoal in question here is natural lump charcoal, and I'm using a device called a chimney starter to light the charcoal. The charcoal goes in the compartment at the top, crumpled newspaper at the bottom, and you simply light the newspaper and place the chimney on the bottom grate of the grill. So why do you use a chimney starter? Well, first of all, it eliminates the need for using petroleum-based lighter fluids, which some people feel impart an unpleasant taste to the food. The other reason is that this vertical shape funnels the heat upwards so that the coals light uniformly. Will take about 20 to 30 minutes, and you'll see that all the coals will be uniformly lit. So while the charcoal is lighting, let me show you how to soak the wood chips for smoking. Spice may give ribs their personality, but smoke is the soul of true barbecue. To generate smoke, use a hardwood chip. These are apple chips, and soak the chips in cold water to cover for about a half an hour. The idea here is when you put the chips on the fire, you want them to smolder, not burn. Okay, back to our ribs. So how do you cook a large number of ribs in a small grilling surface? Well, you use a device called a rib rack. And the rib rack enables you to cook the ribs in an upright vertical position, fat side or spine side up. That way, as the fat melts, it will baste the meat. Now let me show you how to set up the grill for indirect grilling. Now it's been about 20 minutes. You can see the coals in the chimney are uniformly lit. Each basket will hold half the coals, and this helps define your indirect grilling setup. The chimney will be hot, so be sure and wear heat-proof gloves. You may have wondered what this gizmo is for on the chimney starter. It's actually to help you pour the coals. So you pour a few coals in one side and a few coals on the other side. And when you put the chimney down, remember it's hot, so never put it down on a deck. Now the last step here is to place a drip pan in the center between the mounds of coals. Drip pan will catch the dripping fat from the ribs and also, again, help you define your indirect grilling space. Put on the grill grate. Place the ribs in the rack in the center. And this is called indirect grilling because the fire is on either side of the ribs, not directly below it. And add a handful of wood chips to each mound of coals. Finally, place the lid on the grill, and you want to position it in such a way that the vent holes are between the mounds of fire so the smoke is drawn evenly over the ribs. To increase the heat, simply open the vent holes, more oxygen, hotter fire. To reduce the heat, simply close the vent holes, cooler fire. I'm actually cooking these ribs about 350 degrees. It's a hotter temperature than traditional barbecue. The reason is this, baby back ribs are very well marbled, and that high heat will sizzle the fat and give you kind of a crisp consistency. You'll also get to eat your ribs a lot quicker. And we're not done yet. I have to show you how to make the mop sauce. The mop sauce is one of the best kept secrets of professional pit masters, and it differs from a barbecue sauce in that it is neither sweet nor thick. This one contains salted butter, apple cider, and a little of your favorite bourbon. Simply bring these ingredients to a boil, and the reason it's called a mop sauce is that you apply it to the ribs with this, a barbecue mop. Okay, now you never want to put a mop sauce on a raw rib, but these have been smoke roasting for about 45 minutes. And simply dip the mop in the mop sauce, mop it, and the mop sauce serves three purposes. First of all, it helps keep the meat moist. Second of all, it adds an extra layer of butter, bourbon, and apple cider flavor. And finally, it gives you something really cool looking to do while your ribs cook. Well, it's been about an hour and 15 minutes, and these ribs are smoke roasted to perfection. Now, how do you know they're done? Take a look. You can see the meat has shrunk back from the end of the bone by about 1/4 of an inch. It's almost like a pop-up thermometer in a turkey. And what's the one thing that's been conspicuously absent from this recipe? Barbecue sauce. Because I believe the ribs should be smoke roasted and tasty enough that they don't need barbecue sauce. If you want to apply the sauce, put it on at the end. What you can do is just sort of lift the rib out of the rack and place it directly over the fire and brush the sauce on right on at the end. It's almost like a lacquering process. This is a lemon brown sugar barbecue sauce, and you'll find the recipe on our website. So just brush the rib with sauce. So let's see how we did. Take one rib up here. I want to show you one way you recognize a perfect rib is that you can pull it apart with your fingers. And I want you to notice it does not fall off the bone.